Savage Highway is a brutal post-apocalyptic journey released April 11th by Humanoids and adapted from the work of Julia Verlanger, written by Matthew Masmondet and artist Zhang Zhaoyu. Hey comic book junkies, it's the Frog Queen here for another comic book review. And today I've chosen to review Humanoids' upcoming title, Savage Highway. Actually, not really upcoming, as in it comes out tomorrow. So for you, it comes out today. So let me just give you the plot rundown first. An ancient highway spans the wasteland. Its cracked surface has become a migratory route for the lawless hunters and marauders who inhabit the desolate future Earth. Along the highway, Helen, an educated young woman on a perilous mission to rescue her sister, meets Mo, a solitary hunter, and Jin, an Asian warrior. Together, they embark on an epic journey to Paris in ruins, where a new social order is being forged. Right off, I'm going to apologize for any noise in the background. We still have construction here, and there's nothing I can do about it, but I still wanted to keep putting out content, so please bear with the background noise. So it's important to know that the story is based on a world built by French science fiction novelist Julia Verlanger. Probably not saying that right since I'm not French. This is a sort of prequel to another Humanoids graphic novel called Retro World, which has already been released, and I will talk about in another video. But basically, she was a French novelist and heavily revered, and so some people have taken it upon themselves to make graphic novels about her novels and the worlds she's created. My first impressions of the book were really good. I really liked the initial setup, which let us get to know a little about who Helen, our heroine, actually is. She's hardworking, firm, believing, and faithful person. She's a sister, a wife, and a daughter, but all of that is taken away from her within a matter of pages. She quickly meets a mute strong man, and well, here's where I take a little bit of issue. I, for one, can accept that in a post-apocalyptic world, you would most likely, as a female, it would be full of rape, unfortunately. So I can easily accept the story in that way, like this and other portrayals of post-apocalyptic worlds. I wasn't, however, expecting 80s rape. What's 80s rape, you ask? So it's this ridiculous term that a friend of mine and myself coined for a particularly awful film trend in the 80s, where women were often aggressively sexually assaulted and pursued, and then basically when they're assaulted had changed their mind and decided to reciprocate, or in other words, submit. It's the beginning of a lot of love stories in a lot of 80s movies, like Blade Runner, for instance. It's pretty ridiculous, and I think a really poor fantasy to have, if in fact it is actually a fantasy. I don't know, because simply if you were to make the fantasy a reality, it would just be sexual assault and rape. Anyway, I thought it would be an important point to highlight considering today's standards, and I know a lot of women would not appreciate this part of the plot. It just would simply be not acceptable for obvious reasons. However, given that we are talking about the reconstructed work of someone who wrote about a fantasy, perhaps, I can't really go there, I didn't get to read the original story. This is like a reimagining, so I don't know if the original author had wrote this in or not. But anyway, I thought it was an important thing to mention. Anyways, Helen remains determined to find her sister, despite everything. which she believes is in fact still alive. And she's as compassionate to some extent still. And if you can overlook the aforementioned 80s rape, she does come to fall passionately in love with her traveling companion. Her traveling companion, by the way, is a large man named Moon, who for the majority of the book is mute, as I mentioned previously. And you get the sense that this is due to some atrocities which he beheld in his violent reality. And this is a world ruled by a strong, and the strong enslave the weak. Moon himself is complex enough to keep me interested, although it's really a very played out narrative. Brooding man with a violent history. If only she could pierce his rough exterior and get to his heart. Or clawed out and eat it like a lot of other post-apocalyptic zombie movies? I don't know. It's really a narrative that works okay in this story because the ending is so very twisted. Hopelessly twisted. It's so hopeless. Like, spoiler alert, like Stephen King's The Mist. And because this book actually solves a mystery, unlike most apocalyptic stories or post-apocalyptic stories, I can actually bear the whole dynamic between Moon and Helen. I can actually deal with it because there's so many different... because there's an overall absolution and they actually tell you why the world is the way it is, why this apocalypse had actually happened, and what humanity actually tried to do to resolve it or escape it. In short, Savage Highway is not for the faint of heart. And as a side note, Savage Highway is apparently currently slated as in development on IMDb for a film. So keep your eyes peeled for that. And, until next time, read something good. Bye.